Dad Sad, who was on the show, his episode was actually released today. When he came on the show, he said that we need to activate our inner honey badgers.
Yes,
The honey badger, which is this small animal about the
I've s-
size up to the knee,
I've
which
seen it in action.
wow, it can
You
fend
should
off
describe it for your listeners who haven't
Yes.
encountered it.
So the honey badger is this small animal which is up to about the height of one's knee, about a 6 foot adult or so. Very small. Looks, quite harmless. But when you encounter one, its resilience and its ferocity, if you just type in honey badger line, it can take on 6 lions. Now,
Yes.
when I heard this analogy, two people came to my mind. J.K. Rowling and the lady in Portland, Oregon, that would not raise up her hand to the BLM crowd. What do you think of those two honey badgers?
I admire both women. I actually wouldn't say they were honey badgers. Um, uh, I should say yes. I once saw a honey badger in action in Botswana when was following a leopard, and it was an amazing sight. This leopard at dusk was suddenly following it for some time. Beautiful, beautiful sight, extraordinary creatures, and it saw something, and my guide said, it's going to pounce, and it did, and then there was an almighty fight and hissing, and the leopard ran away and cowered, and the guy said, it's a honey badger. You've got a honey badger. I was so pleased. I wanted to call up all my political metaphor friends and tell them immediately that I'd seen this. So yes, you're right. It's a type of animal that is nice and pliant until someone comes its terrain, and then it fights like hell. Yes, J.K. Rowling is a type of honey badger in a way. I would say that she doesn't actually fight like hell. Like she doesn't assault and throttle the opponents in the way that some of us might. She's much more house trained, and a much nicer person than some of us. She undoubtedly protects her terrain, and really admirably, really admirably. She doesn't need to. She's one of the people I see as being the adults in the room. She is very, very left wing by all of her past pronouncements and actions and donations and more. So it's another reminder this isn't some kind of left-right divide. She just really doesn't like it when people pretend that women don't exist. And I hugely admire her for making sure that she continues to make the argument. But as I say, the striking thing about J.K. Rowling, in a way, is she does this so decently. I mean, her critics, such as they are, and they're really not meaningful in their arguments. But the critics say things like, J.K. Rowling wants me dead, it happened when there was a letter of support signed by Tom Stoppard, Ian McEwan, and many other very distinguished literary figures recently in her support, that they got this as well. Oh, I'm so distressed to discover that Ian McEwan wants to kill me, says trans activist Xena Warrior Princess. And this is a totally dishonest and a reprehensible way to behave by these activists. But they aren't actually responded to by Rowling or those figures who signed that letter in a honey badger way. I mean, they aren't completely mauled in the way that, in a way, I would like to see them mauled. I mean, I'd like to see Rowling suing the hell out of everyone. I'd like to see her, really make people pay a price for lying about her and pretending that she wants to kill trans people and other outrageous defamatory things. But she's more restrained than that. She makes her case. She makes it with great elegance and great care and great empathy. By the way, I mean, she doesn't sort of just say bog off tranny or something. In the way that people pretend. She quite rightly says, I respect the fact there are trans people and they need and deserve full rights like everyone else. All of this is perfectly true. I totally agree with this. I say as much in the trans chapter in the Madness of Crowds. There's a real thing that here, and these are real people we're talking about, and they deserve love and compassion and support to the extent that you can give it. But that does not include pretending that chromosomes don't exist. It doesn't include allowing men with big dicks and hairy chests into female-only places. It doesn't mean anything like that. By the way, none of which is some weird transphobe imagination thing. It's stuff that's happened and had real life consequences. You know, some years ago when this argument was gone round, and people said, "Well, what happens if you put trans women in women's prisons? What if they molest the inmates?" And people said, "Oh, what a transphobic thing to say," and so on. And then there have been cases, a very prominent one in the UK, of a man who identified as a woman going into a women's prison and raping a number of the inmates, who included people who had already been subjected to domestic abuse and domestic violence. And so, you do pay a price for lies. And Rowling and a few others have said we're not willing to pay that price. We want to be able to argue this out, and we want to explain the truth as we see it. Uh, and they've done that, and they've done it in the face of, as I say, incredibly dishonest people, and in spite of unbelievably defamatory and unfair claims by their opponents. But they've persevered, and I wish there were more people like that. I say in one of the chapters in Madness of Crowds, the roll call of remarkable women, quite small in number, it has to be said, the roll call of remarkable women who have fought this corner and deserve great respect for having done so.